tell you they represent thousands of firefighters and law enforcement who have worked and are continuing to work tirelessly to protect us and help our community. So again, thank you. Thank you for coming, making time to come. What we wanted to do is give them a little chance to share some updates and some perspective on the big, broad picture of what's been going on. And so we'll jump right into that. I think Chief...
It's an honor to come and talk to you this morning. It's been a long road. I think a lot of you have been affected in here, and our sincere condolences to all of you that have seen any kind of loss or been impacted from this fire. It's the 26th day of this fire since it started. It is, as you know, one of the most damaging and complex fires that we've ever seen in this area. This morning we're at 218,598 acres on the fire. We're 75% contained. That number is going to go up a little bit as we move forward. We have some pretty big unburned islands in the middle of the fire that we're gently trying to burn in so that we don't allow the fire to get mad again and get up and run on the interior and create problems for us. But the perimeter of the fire is pretty secure, and it's holding in place and has been for about the last 4 days, so that's good news for us. Some of the successes that we've seen on this fire, obviously our number one priority is safety of everybody, the citizens, the cooperators, and all the firefighters fighting the fire, but number right behind that is getting folks back into their homes. And I know the sheriff will talk a little bit about that. We had a lot of people displaced from their homes and a lot of communities affected, both in Shasta County, the city of Redding, and Trinity County. And that was a huge success for us to get those folks back into their homes, try to get some normalcy back. We did lose 1,079 residential structures on this fire, which is a significant number of structure loss out there, so we have a lot of displaced families. But again, we're looking for the bright spots in this. Things are getting better every day. The efforts that are going on out there with all the cooperators, from the service providers, from utility companies, roadways, just a myriad of, an army of agencies and organizations that have come together, and the community has come together, is something to really behold, because the speed at which these things have occurred over the last 26 days is incredible. To get the roadways back open, to get people back in, it is really an effort across the board with all the agencies. So anyway, just up on the map here, as I was saying, the perimeter of the fire, really all the way around the south end of this fire, all the way up the west side and across the north end, is contained. Oh, perfect, thank you. We've got good perimeter all the way around this thing. All the way up and around. We've basically pinned it against Shasta Lake, if that makes sense to everybody. That's quite a distance when you look at from Keswick Dam area, down there to Sacramento River and Keswick area, all the way up to Little Sugarloaf Creek, which is right by Sugarloaf, if many of you know where that's at, by Lakehead. That's quite a distance. We have taken the opportunity to try and cut off some of these areas to keep it out of the lakefront. And currently what you're seeing up there with the smoke columns is basically this area all in here is that unburned area that I was talking about that we have to burn. Many of you have seen some of the fire coming off of Bahimatosh, which is north of town. You've seen streams of fire coming down off that mountain over the last few days. That is us running spikes off that thing, just low intensity fire to burn all that in, understory type burning as best as we can to really secure this fire to the lake and really take away any opportunities for it to do any other damage. So with that, we could look at a weather map. We did have a lot of infrastructure on this incident that we normally don't see. We have the Central Valley Project with Shasta Lake and Whiskey Town and the Sacramento River that really affects the drinking water in the state of California. It also has a lot of hydroelectric plants attached to that with Western Area Power Authority and PG&E and all of them that are supplying power really to the entire West Coast over in Humboldt County and on down through the coast as well as Trinity County. A very complex thing. But really what happened on this fire is what we experience in Redding a lot of times, and really through Trinity County and the western part of Shasta County, is a thermal low. You can see it on the weather usually when we're 110 degrees in Redding, and it's 52, 58 degrees in Arcata. We have what we call a thermal low effect that is created. The valley floor in here around Redding, when it's we had record highs during this fire of 113 degrees. All that hot air is going to rise. And when it does, it creates a low pressure down in the valley floor. Well, the balloon gets empty. If you picture the low pressure as an empty balloon. Over at the coast, however, with cooler air, that air sinks and creates a high pressure at the coast, which fills the balloon over here. Well, if you connect two balloons together, what do they want to do? They want to equalize, right? So this air over in the Arcata, Eureka, Trinidad areas, it grabs these drainages, comes up over the range tops, and is trying to fill in this empty balloon. When it does that, it comes off these higher elevations, and as air comes back down to do that, it compresses and it heats up. And it really creates the perfect storm for us with fires on the west side of Redding all the way over through Trinity County. And that's what we experienced with this fire, to some extreme measures, because the bigger that temperature difference, 113 to 59, the stronger those winds. And we saw them in a very erratic manner show up at different times of the afternoon and evenings that really give us a tough time. We got the fire out and got it to what we call plume domination. When the fire starts, the column starts getting so large in the atmosphere, it'll go up to 40,000 feet elevation. It starts creating its own weather, and you see that roll vortice or that twist to the column. It's no different than any other natural disaster, hurricanes and tornadoes. And that's what we saw. So speaking of tornadoes and fire tornadoes, we saw these on this fire. They're saying there's no exact number to how many we had, but they're thinking that there was 3 to 5 of them. The largest of those came through the Keswick area and out through Keswick Dam Road, up through Stanford Hills and Land Park, and that's where we saw a lot of damage. And we also lost some folks up in that area during this fire. What really causes that is that thermal low is pulling that wind in and it's pushing fire downhill into Redding, and it's compressing as it's doing it. And then it comes across the Sacramento River and at the base of Keswick Dam. So as the water is flowing down from Keswick Dam and down into the Sacramento River, you get this eddying effect down in here and turbulent air. When the fire front crosses the river, it's already got a roll vortice to it, and it picks up this, what we call a hydraulic jump. It grabs this and it helps that spin continue, and it creates a fire tornado. I'm not a scientist, but this is really similar to what you would see in Kansas without fire in it. This one was clocked at 165 miles an hour at its height. It was moving 2.5 miles an hour. And it was considered an F3 category type tornado, but with fire in it, with a temperature of 2,700 degrees. So it did some destruction that's pretty amazing. It melted large transmission lines, the big, huge towers that you see. One of those was melted, another one disappeared. There was a lot of stuff that we don't normally see as firefighters. So this fire is historic in many ways. There'll be a lot of scientific studies that go on about what we saw here, but that's what we've been dealing with for 26 days, and things are outstanding compared to where we've been today. So again, with that, I'll turn it over to Chief Mike Hebert.
My name is Mike Hebert. I'm the unit chief for CAL FIRE here in the Shasta Trinity unit, and also the chief of the Shasta County Fire Department. And so this has been a long, trying event for many people. I'd like to just start out by saying I understand approximately 16 people here, faculty, houses were destroyed by this fire, and we are truly sorry for that. We've lost, just watching and seeing many of our friends, families, co-workers' houses destroyed in this fire. It's just been very trying. We feel for what you're going through, and just keep standing each other up, because that's what's going to make us stronger in the end when we come out of this, and we will come out of this stronger when we get there. It's going to take some time, but we will get there. What I wanted to show you today, and tie it into what we did here at the college, is some video. So I got the first one up, and this one was taken on at 1846 hours, 6:46, from the power lines near Buenaventura, looking toward Iron Mountain Road. This was the fire behavior just before the tornado. So this was at 6:46. You can see what we were looking at all around as the fire was getting ready to come in through Keswick. It's actually somewhat benign right now. There's a lot of fire on the ground, but it's not the tornado yet. So just to set this up, this was on that Thursday, the 26th. That is the day that the dozer operator, Don Smith, died. Just after this, that is the day that we had 3 firefighters get burned. Right after this, that is the day we had 2 dozer operators get burned. You'll see the video when it happened right after this. And that is the day that our friend Jeremy Stoke died. Right after this. Go ahead and go to the next one. So this next video was taken at 7:17 hours. 7:17 p.m. I actually recognize the voice as Dave Law after I heard it a few times, looking toward Iron Mountain Road from his house, which is very near those power lines.
Okay, Mike, yeah, take a look at that. That's incredible. Yep, it's roaring straight into the city of Ripley. Should be right here somewhere.
You see, just in 30 minutes, a huge pickup in intensity, a wall of fire coming through. That's about the time where the dozers burned over back near Benson Road. We can go to the next video, which will be at 7:38 p.m., taken by one of our fire prevention officers in Land Park. You can see that twist coming. That quite honestly scared the hell out of every person that was up there. And now, again, that's 7:38, 4 minutes later, we'll go to the next video. That was taken by our helicopter, it's called our Helco, looking from the north to the south. The tornadoes over Land Park subdivision in Stanford Hills. Note that the Keswick estates hadn't burned yet. Look at the fire coming at each other, side to side. Right about here is Buenaventura, the north end of Buenaventura. So north end of Buenaventura, then you can go over the river and back to Reading. You can see up here, look at the fire that high up. Look right there. Garage door, we don't know what that is, something very large up in the air. Sitting right back here, there's a couple fire engines, a bunch of residents from that land park that they were keeping safe. In the middle of this, 2 of our folks in 2 separate vehicles got caught right at the exterior of this. They blew all their windows out. They had a family in the car with them. They all slowly, they thought they were going to die. They somehow came out. One person, of course, didn't, and that's Jeremy Stoke. So this is what we were facing when we were going through that evacuation, that firestorm. Again, the fire was moving this way, but it slotted down to the river, and it just drew on itself. All these houses ended up burning afterwards, after this tornado, there in the Keswick Estates. That's where we had the huge evacuations. That's where the college came in. That's where all our evacuation centers came in. The sheriff and I were together, driving around, coming around the backside on this, across Keswick Dam Boulevard, or across the dam itself. And the amount of people we saw, A, not leaving, who should have been leaving, and B, once we hit Lake Boulevard, the vehicles that were stuck. The town is not designed for 38,000 people to leave at once. They were stuck. If you were part of it, you know that. On Lake Boulevard, on I-5, every artery stuck. The evacuation centers, what we had here with probably 800 or so people, incredible what we need to get everybody out. It's the first time where I've seen it where we fill up evacuation center after evacuation center. So I don't want to steal, even though I enjoy doing it, to the sheriff. I don't want to steal all his thunder. So I'm going to pass it off to him, and we'll come back to questions at the end, I'm sure. We'll get time.
A lot of community presentations, and so I start stealing all the fire terms and use some of the stuff in my presentation, so we didn't do that today. Tom Basanko, Shasta County Sheriff. I'm also the Director of Emergency Services for the 13 Northern California counties. We call that Region 3. When we have fires, our folks on the ground, our deputy sheriffs, men and women working out there, usually as it starts to spread and it looks like it might be threatening residences and structures, they team up right away with the incident commander that's on the scene, some of the initial attacks, and then usually it punts to, I think, battalion chief usually comes out a little bit later, is that correct? And then if it gets a lot of momentum and spread, then of course it gets much more resources to it. And so we're working hand in hand with the fire folks on where to evacuate, what to evacuate, and trying to get way out ahead and give those notices. And that's important because of the fire behavior. Everything's a little bit different. This was a very, very fast moving fire. We have one up in Lakehead right now that's on the east side of I-5 called the Hertz Fire. That one is a very slow moving fire. And I think, Brett, you said it only grew by about 400 acres last night, roughly. So that is very slow moving, and so gives us a little more time. But the big thing is we don't take these evacuations lightly. And when we go and ask or tell people to evacuate, they need to evacuate. And it gives them some time, hopefully some time. This was, again, a very fast-moving fire, but to get out. And then if they don't, they're placing themselves in danger, their family in danger, and then the firefighters in danger, because then they have to try and come and do a rescue. And Chief Ebrard, you heard some of those heroic efforts by the firefighters to get some families out. When we were on Keswick Dam Road, we ended up picking up 2 people. One person was kind of just standing in the middle of the road trying to get his vehicles out. He shouldn't, but they were all burnt around. The vehicles hadn't been burnt up. Loaded him up in our vehicle, and then there was another person just walking down the road, and they had what we call the 1,000-yard stare on them. So they were functioning, but they really didn't know what was going on. And we loaded him up, and it probably saved their lives because we were close to getting burned over a few times there. So I was joking with Chief Ebrard that there was a St. Christopher medal on his dash, and St. Christopher had his eyes covered where we were driving. So, but we give these evacuation notices, and we do it for a number of reasons, especially the county. The roads are narrow, fire apparatus are big and wide. So if you got people coming out and fire apparatus coming in, that can cause a gridlock. And the roads were just chaos and pandemonium that night. Bumper to bumper, we had one of our vehicles that had been near Market and Lake Boulevard. Persons were panicking. One of our patrol cars got rammed, and the person just did a hit and run and kept driving. Luckily, it didn't hit the officer. I think there was some CAL FIRE rigs that got bumped and run into with people trying to get out, and that's because they were waiting until the last minute. I-5 was bumper to bumper, crawling along at about 5 to 15 miles an hour, so we had to use our emergency lights and go into the median just to get past it, to get from point A to point B. And so we set up the evacuation centers. Shasta College played a key role, and we've only used it, Shasta College, I think, once or twice. I remember the Jones Fire, this was an evacuation center as well. Big help because you got a big campus here. And at one point, I think there was close to 500 people here. Some other people evacuated that maybe didn't have to, but that's okay. And then many of the major insurance companies came here and set up their motorhomes and trailers and stuff to help the victims here. And we had, at one time, 5 evacuation centers set up. We had Shasta College, Foothill High School, Cross Point Community Church. I'm missing one. Simpson University, and of course Shasta College. And then we had Trinity High School over in Weaverville set up, not only for some of the Trinity County folks, but initially it was set up for when we did the evacuations in the French Gulch. And there was a number of people over there as well. Huge, and of course my hat's off to Red Cross, Salvation Army, and then the many volunteers that help out, as well as my understanding some of the Shasta College staff was here when the evacuation center was here helping out as well, so thank you all very much. So then we give evacuation notices. We do that through a number of ways, whether it be through our community alert system, which is like reverse 911 for hardline phones, cellular phones. We use the emergency alert system, which is can come across your AM/FM radio, or you see a crawler. We call it a crawler. It's a ribbon that comes across your TV screen for evacuations. We used a system also called the Integrated Public Warning Alert System, and that goes through cellular towers. And that puts out a broader alert system. So even if you're visiting, say, from out of the area or out of state, if your cell phone is active, you can get that alert. So it casts a bigger net, and sometimes that causes some confusion, or maybe people don't listen to the entire warning of where we're giving specific evacuations. But they still get that, and that was beneficial as well. It cast a bigger net, and we also had one where we said, hey, we're going to evacuate the city of Shasta Lake. A little bit of overreach. We didn't actually do evacuations there, but I'd rather be out ahead of it and give it an evacuation notice than not. So some people said, hey, we didn't get an evacuation notice. It's possible, because again, this was so fast moving. Officers were calling in locations, an area where they were trying to evacuate, or get out ahead and have our dispatch center get into these computer systems. Well, they couldn't keep up with as fast as it was going to get all those notices out. The big thing is rely on a little bit of self-reliance and common sense. Is if you think you might need to evacuate, don't wait for our notice. You don't have to have